Alrighty, everybody, it is Friday. It is news of the week for Friday, November 22nd. A little bit of a disclaimer. Well, two disclaimers, actually. I am recording this a little bit earlier on a Friday than I normally would, so I may miss some news that happened later today. And also, a lot of the big pieces that we're going to talk about in this video are kind of things that I've already talked about earlier in the week, like the Ryan Reeves suspension, Jim Montgomery being fired, Ovechkin. We're going to talk about all of that here. I know there are some people who do just tune into the Friday news videos, but there are other videos up on the channel of me talking about these other things. So, just making sure you guys know. But thank you for the support the last 3 weeks. Let's get into number 4 of the news of the week for your Friday, November 22nd. So starting off here, Jim Montgomery was let go this past week, the first coach to be fired this season. Joe Sacco is taking over as the interim head coach as for now. Sacco has been the assistant coach since 2014, so the guy has been here for a very long time, and he also coached the Colorado Avalanche from 2009 to 2013, and was actually the assistant coach for the Buffalo Sabres during the 2013-2014 season as well. So this guy has experience on top of being here for almost 10 seasons. Jim Montgomery's record with Boston was at a very impressive 120, 41, and 23 record, which amounts up to a .715 points percentage. Very impressive record. And again, I made a whole 18-minute video talking about, is the blame on Jim Montgomery? I'll link it in this card up here. I forgot what side it's on. I'll put it up there, but honestly, I beat this topic to death. I think that, you can look at it as Montgomery is a good coach, but the Bruins needed to get something going here, and maybe this is the change they needed to do. Again, they did just beat Utah last night, at the time of recording of this video, so it's definitely, I think it's definitely a controversial hire for sure. Again, I don't believe all of it is Montgomery's fault. I think some of it lies on him, but a lot of it also lies on the players too. I think it's a split, to be honest, between the two parties. It sounds like I'm talking about politics, but again, it's definitely interesting, and I think for sure Montgomery is a coach who will get another job in the NHL eventually. It could be even this season, maybe after the next coach gets fired, and I'll talk about that in the rumor mill, actually. Moving on to injuries, and I'm going to be honest, this whole first page of news that I have here is injuries. So we'll kind of skim through this real quick. Nothing too, it's injuries, but there's nothing too insane to talk about here. Besides, I would say Alex Ovechkin is going to be out for the next 4 to 6 weeks with a fractured fibula that he suffered against Utah on Tuesday of this past week. Now, that is unfortunate. It sucks because Ovechkin was playing so well. He was on that remarkable goal chase, and then, of course, he gets injured. Now, it's looking like this may be the longest injury Ovechkin suffered in his entire NHL career that I think is non-playoff related. So that's pretty wild when you think about it. Somebody who's 39 years old and has been in the league for as long as he has, and he just now suffers an injury like that. It's kind of crazy when you think about it, but hopefully Ovechkin can recover and come back and break that goal record again. He's like 25, 26 goals away, so he is very within reach of it, and I think it probably does happen this season for sure. Carolina's Frederik Andersen. I feel like we talked about him in the last week and the week before. It feels like we're talking about him a bunch. But Frederik Andersen, it's kind of clear how much time he's going to miss, because when I made my video last week, I said that he's going to just be out for a long time. I didn't give like a specific timeline. Now we have that. Andersen's going to be out for 8 weeks, 8 to 12 weeks or so, with a undergoing knee surgery procedure. And it is not a major surgery, but it is still a surgery, so he's going to miss some time. And I think that will take him to mid-January. Not 100% sure how weeks work. I think probably mid-January or beginning of February is when we'll see Frederik Andersen back. But who knows? Sometimes guys take longer. Sometimes guys take shorter. So, again, that can be said for Ovechkin as well. These guys can come back way sooner than they're projected to be. But hopefully Andersen has a nice and speedy recovery. Okay, a lot of Toronto Maple Leafs injuries here. You guys have been waiting for this. If you guys watched Wednesday's game against Vegas, you would see that they called up Nikolai Gurbankin, they called up Fraser Min, they called up like all of these new guys, and it's basically the Toronto Marlies. When you look at their roster, just they are so injury depleted, and I have more of that here for you guys. So Austin Matthews, the biggest injury of them all, I would say, even though it's not the most severe, I would say it's the most notable. Matthews went to Germany this past week to go get his undisclosed injury checked out, which seems to be making good progress. Doctors are told him that everything's going well, and people were shocked and concerned that, oh, he went to Europe. Well, this happens more than we think, I would say. There's a lot of players, not just in the NHL, but in pro sports, who do go out to Europe and go see people there. I think it's definitely a more beneficial way because there are good people in the States, but I think Europe definitely brings a better component to some injuries that players may have. And for Matthews, it seems like they're making good progress. He could be back as soon as next week. He could be. So I think that we're worried about Matthews. I don't think it's going to be that serious, at least as of right now. Could be wrong, but we'll see where that transpires. Calle Jarnkrok is how you actually say his name. He has undergone groin and sports hernia surgery and is month to month. He has not played yet this season. It sucks because Jarnkrok was one of those fourth line pieces that Toronto wanted to use in their little rotation they have going on there. It's unfortunate that Jarnkrok isn't going to be able to, maybe not play till next season, or not next season, next year, like next calendar year. But it happens to players sometimes. They go through long-term injuries. So hopefully Jarnkrok will be okay and come back as soon as possible. But again, you don't want to rush things like that either, especially. And the final Toronto injury that I have here, David Kampf will be out until mid-December with a lower body injury as well. So again, as I said, the injuries just keep piling up in Toronto. They just keep stacking up. And honestly, it sucks, but sometimes teams go through that. Like they are in Colorado Avalanche territory here with the amount of injuries they have this season already. But they're winning games, so you can't really complain. They beat Vegas. They've kind of had this week off, which is a big benefit. They don't play till Sunday now, so that's kind of definitely a good thing for sure with the amount of injuries they have. And who knows, maybe some of these guys will return sooner rather than later. New York Islanders' Mike Riley is set to have a heart procedure that will keep him out of the lineup for months. And this is one of those things where he was getting checked for another injury, and they found this. And it's kind of, Lou Lamoriello said it was kind of a blessing in disguise, because had they not found this could have been a lot worse. Again, they said that some players are born with this heart condition, or some people, not just players, are born with this heart condition, but they may not know it. And finding this out is definitely a good thing, and hopefully he'll get the right treatment and maybe get back to the NHL by the time this next season is on, or by the end of this season, I would say. So definitely hoping for a speedy recovery there from Mike Riley as well. Robbie Fabry has undergone knee surgery and will miss the next 6 weeks as well. Fabry lost there to the Ducks. He was a new acquisition they brought in this year, I believe. So hopefully he will be able to recover. Chicago's Seth Jones will miss 4+ weeks with with a right foot injury. Don't know what happened there. But yeah, hopefully Jones will be okay. Lost to the Chicago Blackhawks blue line for sure, but maybe give someone like Kevin Korchinski or somebody in the minors an opportunity to maybe come up and play for that amount of time. But again, we shall see. And then finally, the final injury that I have here for you guys, that's kind of like an injury, I would say. Caden Lidstrom underwent back surgery and will return to the WHL in 2025. Now, for those who do not know, Caden Lidstrom is a Blue Jackets prospect, was taken, I think, 4th overall or 3rd overall. I'm not in the top 5, I would say. So hopefully he will come back and get back to his regular form, but there is some concern out there for whether or not Caden Lidstrom can maybe stay healthy with this back issue that he may have. Because again, this has been a problem for the last few seasons, and I'm not sure where it goes from here. But hopefully everybody that I mentioned will be okay, and hopefully they have a speedy recovery, all of them. Also related to, not really injuries, but a different version of it, I would say, JT Miller is taking a personal leave of absence from the Vancouver Canucks. hopefully whatever he's going through, he will make it through it okay. It's been reportedly related to a injury that he's suffering. He may be having issues with recovering from. So we'll see how long JT Miller's out of the lineup. But again, it's kind of a loss for Vancouver that really does stink. Miller is a solid player for them, has always been a good top 6 forward for the team. And hopefully, eventually, he will be able to come back to the NHL and be consistent. Okay, so something that just happened here that I need to write into this news video. Brett Howden has signed a 5-year, $2.5 million contract extension with the Vegas Golden Knights. Howden so far this year has 9 points in 20 games played with the team. And I think that I talked about Brandon McNabb last week. I talked about Shea Theodore 2 weeks ago. It seems like Vegas is really trying to lock up their 2025 agents already and kind of just trying to get that out of the way. I think that's definitely a good thing. You want to get your guys locked up and have them ready for the long term. And I think that they're really committed to having this core as well, because it seems like they're not only locking up all the top guys, but locking up all the depth guys as well. But for a third liner like Brett Howden or a fourth line guy like him, I think it's a very good deal. I would say. I think that, on a $2.5 million deal, a 5-year, I don't really know if I would do 5 years, but if he is really a part of your long-term plans, hey, go for it. I'm not one to judge. Okay, next up, let's talk about the Ryan Reaves suspension. So Ryan Reaves was suspended for an illegal check to the head on Darnell Nurse. He was suspended for 5 games. And I know there are a lot of people talking about the Zach Whitecloud hit as well. And I really don't want to get into that because that's a whole thing. I really disagree with what player safety did, how they called it, but you take it what you will. I think Ryan Reaves' hit, though, is dirty. It's blatantly dirty. You can say all you want about how Darnell Nurse had his head down. Sure, you can look at that from that way. But Reaves makes clear head contact. If you watch the player safety video that they put out, it's pretty clear that Reaves does make direct head contact on Nurse. It may not be intentional, but it still is head contact. It still is a suspension. And those are the kind of hits that need to be taken out of the game. And I think it makes a lot of sense for what the punishment was for Reaves. Previous offender, he's been suspended a few other times in his career. So overall, I think that it's the right call. You may disagree because I've seen some people say, oh, it's clean, but it's head contact. It's not the 70s anymore where that stuff can fly. Just being dead honest. Neil Pionk was fined $5,000 for clipping Jesper Boquist. I thought that was interesting too. I looked at that and I was like, oh, yeah, probably a fine. Even my podcast partner, Carter, who's a Jets fan, was honestly surprised it wasn't a suspension. So, I mean, I think Pionk kind of got off a little bit easy on that one. But yeah, Pionk fined $5,000. Really won't cost him that much, to be honest with you guys. He's an NHL player. He's not like not making millions of dollars. Come on. All right, anyways. Kasperi Kapanen, one of the waiver news this past week. There's been a few guys placed on waivers this past week. Nothing too big of note besides Kasperi Kapanen being placed on waivers by the St. Louis Blues and being claimed by the Edmonton Oilers. So, Kapanen, alongside McDavid, I feel like his career has really kind of been slow to start. It seems like he's been really, on and off. He went from Toronto to Pittsburgh to St. Louis and now to Edmonton. It's kind of just bounced around the league a little bit as a player who has also been in the AHL as well. So I think maybe Kapanen can work out in Edmonton, gives him some more offensive depth, and that never hurts. When you're trying to win a Stanley Cup, when you're trying to be contending, it never hurts to have as many offensive depth pieces as literally possible. So Kapanen, I think, is a good ad there for the Oilers for sure. The St. Louis Blues and the Chicago Blackhawks have released their Winter Classic jerseys. I like these a lot. I think I might do a Winter Classic tier list for Tier Rank Tuesday. Not 100% sure what I'm doing yet, but I'm going to put that on the list for sure for things that I can do. I like the jerseys. I like Chicago's more for sure. It reminds me a lot of the current Blackhawks jersey that I have right now, which is one of their throwback vintage jerseys that they have. I think it still looks really nice, though. St. Louis's is interesting. I'm not a huge fan of it, but it's not the worst one out there. I think there are definitely worser ones out there. I do like St. Louis's from 2022 better than their one this year. So I will say that. But I think both are very nice. If I were to get one, I would probably get the Chicago one. The St. Louis one I already basically have. It's just St. Louis on it and not the logo, to be honest with you. Pavel Datsyuk has signed a one-day contract with the Detroit Red Wings to retire a Detroit Red Wing. That's pretty awesome, I would say. I mean, it's crazy because Datsyuk played with Yzerman, I believe, and it's pretty cool to kind of connect the dots together and how those two lifelong friends have kind of signed a contract, and Datsyuk retires as a Red Wing. I thought that was pretty cool. I think that for sure with him, he could have done so much more in the NHL. It just sucks because he missed a lot of games. He almost had 1,000 points in a very short amount of time, comparatively speaking. So he was honestly an incredibly underrated player during his time, and I wish the best of luck to him in retirement. He definitely went out and played, I think, in the KHL for a few years there. But since then, has kind of been, on and off. He actually got inducted to the Hall of Fame, I think this past year. So congratulations to him. Best of wishes to him in retirement, and hopefully maybe we'll see him more around the Detroit Red Wings later on this year. One more thing before we get into the rumor mill, trying to keep this under 20 minutes, but I know I'm going to exceed that limit because I can already tell. The Seattle Kraken have scratched Shane Wright for the second straight game. I think this is very interesting. You look in terms of Shane Wright, he was a projected number 1 pick 3 years ago. And now he's fallen off the race and has honestly become somebody who, the media and fans love to profile as a bust. Now, I am not profiling him as a bust. I'm not saying he's a bust, but, what I'm seeing so far is a little bit concerning. I mean, I get that he's only 20 years old. 2022 was only 2 years ago. Well, 3 years ago almost. But he's got to pick it up. He's got to start picking it up here soon, or else he might find himself in the AHL again. I really thought he would get a chance playing with Dan Bylsma, or under Coach Dan Bylsma, since he had him in Coachella for 2 seasons. It's really weird how he is just not panned out in the NHL. I don't know what to say. It's really strange how that has not worked. Okay, let's move into the rumor mill. The rumors around the NHL. A lot of these you may have heard, but let's get straight into them here. So starting off with the Colorado Avalanche. We know Colorado may have a goalie problem. Georgiev, I think, is injured. Anunanen is not a bad starter, but he may not be the permanent starter, which is why the Colorado Avalanche are eyeing Mackenzie Blackwood for a potential trade piece and to become their starting goaltender. This is per David Pagnotta. So, for those who do not know, Mackenzie Blackwood is the goalie for the San Jose Sharks, the team who finished last in the league last year. He actually was only .01 below a .900 last year on a horrendous Sharks team. You guys remember how bad that team was? They let in 10 goals. Twice. So, that was a team that was not good. They're still not that good this year, and Blackwood's still putting up awesome numbers with them. I mean, even in the years before that, like with Jersey, he really wasn't what we thought he was going to be, but he's kind of rejuvenated himself here in San Jose. And I think if Colorado could go out and get him, he's on a cheap deal. And I think that would go a long way for what Colorado wants to do with their cup run and with their overall team. Again, I don't think Blackwood's one of the best goalies in the NHL with me saying that, but playing behind a pretty bad Sharks team and you have just below .900, I think that's pretty impressive, I would say. And he already has a good record this year as well. So we'll see where that goes. But I definitely think that's something you got to keep an eye on moving forward. Next up, Mike Sullivan, Derek Lalonde, and Luke Richardson are coaches who could be on the coaching hot seat per The Athletic. It's not really a rumor. That's kind of The Athletic just speculating. But I thought I'd bring it up because it is a little bit interesting. Sullivan and Lalonde aren't surprising. I'm going to talk about Lalonde and the Red Wings tomorrow. But Richardson was a little bit shocking to me. But I guess we see Chicago, they're still kind of struggling. I mean, the offense really hasn't been producing, and there's some smoke raising up there about maybe Luke Richardson's job might be done. And I feel like it's kind of the same smoke as Marty St. Louis, where we see the things St. Louis does and we disagree with them, but the Canadians are still rebuilding. Maybe it's the same thing there with the Blackhawks. But again, who am I to speak on that? That is for Blackhawks fans to talk about. Again, I cannot watch all 32 teams in the NHL. I know that may upset some people because I'm a kid. I don't have time to do that. I watch as much as I can, but honestly, it's a little bit surprising seeing him on that list for a team that is currently rebuilding right now. Sullivan and Lalone aren't surprising, though. I would say Sullivan, I think it's possible, even though the Penguins do have a good relationship with him. The Penguins aren't that far out of a playoff spot, though, when you look in the brass tacks of it. And Lalone, neither are the Red Wings. I think the Red Wings have the same amount of points as Pittsburgh. So all it takes is for a winning streak, and these are changed completely. The opinions are changed entirely. So, again, speculation, but we'll see where it goes. Next up, John Gibson is believed to be willing to waive his no-trade clause to go to the Edmonton Oilers. This is also per The Athletic. This is very interesting, I would say, because you look at Edmonton's goaltending situation. They are believed to maybe wanting to upgrade in net. They may not believe in Stuart Skinner, and if John Gibson's willing to waive his contract to go there, I don't know, maybe you take that offer. But then you ask the question, is John Gibson better or is Stuart Skinner better? I wouldn't say Gibson's at the best point in his career right now. If we're talking 3 years ago, then yeah, I would go for it. But there may be a reason why a lot of teams aren't very interested in him. And hey, he's been on like the trade block for the past 3 years. And even this past summer, there was a thing that came out which said nobody wants John Gibson. So I don't know. I don't know if I really believe that. We'll see if it's true. Maybe the Oilers do pursue it, but I'm not too keen on really buying that. And I don't really know if John Gibson's really that much better than Stuart Skinner, if I'm being honest with you guys. Also in Ducks land, the Ducks management seems to not be believing in Trevor Zegras, per Frank Saravelli. This was interesting too when I saw this pop up. Because, again, I feel like we've talked about Zegras a couple of times throughout the news videos that I've made. I think that, I don't know, because he's off to a really slow start this year, too. And it's been actually very concerning with how he's played so far. But I don't really know if they're not believing in him just yet. I feel like they still want to keep him within their organization and buy into them and have him on the roster still and see if he can bounce back. But then again, I mean, we thought this year was going to be such a good year from him, and it really has not picked up. But again, I could be wrong, and we'll see where this transpires from here. And again, maybe you don't believe that rumor, but I think it's something that you have to at least keep your eye on, for sure. The Blue Jackets are exploring trade options with David Jiricek per the fourth period. So I feel like this is something we talked about last week as well. We discussed this because I said that there have been rocky waters with Jiricek, and now that has seemed to come out to the surface a lot more with him being sent down to the American Hockey League and, seeing all of that. And I think that there's a very good chance that we may see Jiricek get traded to another roster and get another better start. And I feel like with Columbus, it's another bad management. It's another bad development of a player. And it just seems like, I said it in the last video. I said that it became clear like Pascal Vincent did not like Jiricek. It seems like Dean Evison does not like David Jiricek. So that probably means he's going to find his way out of Columbus at some point. He's back in the AHL again, and maybe he could find himself on another team who needs defensemen. I don't know. But again, when you're looking at Columbus, they already have kind of a stacked blue line as it is. It doesn't really surprise me that they push David Jiricek, a young defenseman, out of that veteran-like lineup that they have there. So, again, we'll see. We'll see what happens there with Jiricek. I don't really have any contenders or guys, maybe they'll go out and get him. But again, something to keep an eye on and keep a lookout for in the future. And finally, the final rumor mill news. The Blackhawks may make sense for a landing spot for Morgan Frost, per Elliot Friedman. This was interesting. I've seen this really pick up a lot of fire or smoke, I would say, through the last couple of days. I'm not really sure if I believe it. I think that it's possible we are going to see Morgan Frost not be on this roster. It seems like him and the Flyers have kind of had a fallout, which sucks because I've always liked Morgan Frost. I always wanted him to work out, but he just hasn't. Last year I thought he looked good, but again, it just seems like John Tortorella doesn't like him. Danny Briere doesn't like him. I think that it's going to happen at some point where he's going to get moved out of Philadelphia. And maybe Chicago is that landing spot, but we shall see. Okay, that is my news video for November 22nd, 2024. Again, I am recording this a little bit earlier on a Friday than I normally would, so there may have been things that I missed. Thankfully, I caught the Brett Howden signing before I, started recording here. But regardless, that'll do it for me. Thank you guys very much for watching. I know this video was over 20 minutes. It's about 25 minutes when it comes out, which kind of stinks, but, I can't control how much news there is. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below on these rumors, whether or not you think they are true. Thank you guys for watching. Like the video too. Please subscribe down below if you're new. And I will see you guys in the next video.